Good morning and welcome to our second committee meeting. Echoes everywhere, so we're still trying to maintain our process. And you can see Nicole trying to figure out what happened. Okay, so good morning. We're still getting a little bit of an echo, so I will speak very slowly. I think I speak for everyone. And let's see, I don't know if I'm live in your photo shot or not, but just listen to my voice. We're showing Nicole and David. Okay, anyway, hang in there with us, y'all, as we try and figure this out. So I'll start again. I think I speak for everyone in saying that last week's meeting went well and was incredibly informative. The success last week and hopefully today is due to the hard work of the House Media Service Office, David Hartman and Nicole Chappelle. Please give them all a thank you when you see them. As I mentioned last week, our committee, like the world, has been adjusting to COVID-19. These virtual meetings will hopefully allow us to be as thorough with legislation as we are accustomed to, but keep us safe when we reconvene the session. With that in mind, here's what we'll be doing today. Last week, we heard the Senate bill authors present their bills to our committee. We then asked committee members to submit questions to the public, we then asked committee members to submit questions and the public to send in their comments. I want to thank everyone who participated in that process, legislators and members of the public. Today, we will walk through both the public comments and questions for each bill. Some bills did not have any questions submitted, but we still want to hear some final comments from the bill's authors. And our order today jumps around just slightly because of conflicts that some of our presenters are having. And Senator Frank Ginn will actually do a presentation of his bill and then also have reference to the questions and comments. So this time, David Hartman has worked out some different video graphics for us and such as that. So I will be deferring and referring to David a lot as we go along. So our first order today is Senator Tyler Harper with Senate Bill 473 and Senate Bill 474. And we also have our DNR person here with us. I think Mark Williams is somewhere on our call. So thank y'all for being present and we will begin. Senator Harper, if you're ready. Do I hear Senator Harper? So, at this point in time, if it were public TV, we'd have a commercial.
Madam Chair, I see he's on the call, but his audio is trying to connect, so it might take 1 second.
Okay.
But I do see him on there. Also, Commissioner Mark Williams, I believe you're on the call, but may be muted.
Hey, this is Commissioner Williams.
Good morning. Now we're waiting for Chairman Harper, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're trying. Chairman Harper, where are you?
Madam Chair, I could do a little presentation if you want me to while we're waiting. It's up to you.
I'm here. I finally got unmuted.
Hey, you know what? This is new technology for all of us, and I just want to say I think we're doing pretty good here. So now I'm going to be quiet, mute my button so that Chairman Harper and can make their comments.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. If it's okay with you, I gave the committee a brief description of what these bills did last week, and if it's okay, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Williams and let him give a little more detail if that's okay, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Harper, and thank you, Madam Chair, and the committee members for having me on the call. Starting with Senate Bill 473, the bill would allow DNR to transfer the Historic Preservation Division to the Department of Community Affairs in FY21. DNR will retain the state archaeology team under the Parks Division, while DCA will administer the remaining programs. After discussions with DCA, DNR, and OPB, it was concluded that the Historic Preservation Division and its mission would best serve Georgia citizens under the umbrella of the Department of the Community Affairs. This transition will streamline the process for many future customers, including local communities in their downtowns, as they already interact with DCA through comparable tax credit, grant, and development programs. This seamless streamlining will achieve the governor's initiative for agencies to offer better service to the customers of the state. And this move will establish a one-stop shop for those looking to improve Georgia communities through intentional engagement with historic places and properties. In regard to the fiscal impact, the move of HPD to DCA affects two items in DNR's budget. First, it is a transfer of roughly $1 million to DCA, and the second is a reduction of approximately $361,000 by recognizing the efficiencies during the move of HPD to DCA. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll now move on to SB 474. And as it's laid out in the original FY21 budget recommendation, DNR is slated to take over the management of two state visitor centers, Plains and Sylvania, from the Department of Economic Development. These visitor centers are historically focused in nature, which should make for a smooth transition under our Parks and Historic Sites Division. SB 474 gives DNR the authority to construct, operate, and maintain the welcome centers. This is the same authority allowed to the Department of Economic Development. This legislation is also needed to allow the visitor centers to take advantage of the park receipt, revenue, and DNR bond proceeds. In essence, Madam Chair and members of the committee, we already operate about 55 welcome centers at State Park, and so this is a great fit for us to take these over and let these properties take advantage of our bonding capabilities and our park receipts. In regard to the bill's fiscal impact, this bill is tied to a line item reduction of a little over $275,000 by recognizing efficiencies involving the move of the welcome centers to DNR. That's the two bills. I thank Chairman Harper for carrying them in the Senate, and I'll be happy to answer any questions from me or Chairman Harper. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chairman Harper, do you have any comments to add?
I don't, Madam Chairman. I think the Commissioner pretty well covered it pretty good. I think these are, like I said last week, these are pretty straightforward on what we're doing. Kind of some of the, I think the Commissioner kind of laid out some of the reasonings why. I will just reiterate the fact that we've already made the adjustments within the budget from appropriations side, and that actually that the budget that y'all passed in the House had these changes already in that budget. The budget we have in the Senate that we're going to be sending back to y'all will maintain these changes. So this is the legislative adjustment to what we've already done in the budget. So I would encourage y'all to help us go ahead and move these bills on through. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And so we'll just see you next week in person when we reconvene and are back in session. Thank you again to Commissioner Williams and to Chairman Harper. And unless you need to, y'all don't need to stay on the call. We'll communicate with you through our committee, communications on legislation and process there. So next we move on to Senator Brian Strickland with Senate Bill 426. I'm going to mute my button and have David Hartman help us walk through this with Senator Strickland. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On Senate Bill 426, I didn't cut you off, did I, David? Were you going to say something first? I'm sorry.
No, quite all right. If you wouldn't mind, first, if you have any additional comments from last week, and then I can go through the public comment that we received, and then you can give any final comments if you like after that.
Okay, yeah, I don't have anything additional to report, so I'll let you go ahead.
All righty then. So again, last week we posted a slide that solicited public comments. Hopefully what you're seeing on the screen right now are the 3 comments we saw this, and you'll see it continuously for each bill that we go through. And on Senate Bill 426, we received April Lipscomb from the Southern Environmental Law Center, Georgia Water Coalition, who did not take a specific position but does support transparency and public notification, and then Wes Robinson from Georgia Chemistry Council. Those 3 folks sent in comments in support of the legislation. Senator, if you have any final comments?
No, and I appreciate it. I know it seems sometimes like a bill is moving, like it almost seems easy sometimes, right? A bill like this without any opposition. But there was a lot of work done previously, as I mentioned last time, on the Senate side, of course, in committee, but also on your side on this issue. And I mentioned Chairman Don Parsons and also Representative Eric Allen. Those were the 2 that really led on this. And we all came together with the governor's office and EPD to get this thing right. So I'm happy to see that everyone's still on the same page with this. And I'm happy to entertain any other questions you may have, Madam Chair, anything else you may discuss on this bill.
Oh, Madam Chair, I think you've got to unmute.
Voila. Okay. So thank you. We'll be live next week and can have a lot more conversation as we go along to clarify the process. Thank you again, Senator. Next is Senator William Ligon. And Senator, I will turn it over to you in just a second. But again, David Hartman will be posting the public comments, and I think you know the questions that come with legislation. So Senator, your turn.
Well, actually, while we're waiting for Senator Ligon to get on, what I will be doing is packaging all public comments and making sure they're sent to committee members as well as the Senate authors for y'all to review. I know a couple of folks also sent in not necessarily a position on legislation, but also sent just general information that they wanted y'all to have. So we'll be sure to provide that as well. But Senator Ligon, if you're ready and have any comments you would like to provide for Senate Bill 123. I think you might be muted on your end, sir. Huh. I cannot hear you. Madam Chair, are you able to hear?
No.
Okay. We can see you unmuted, but we don't hear you, Senator.
Here's a technical question. If we're running into technical problems this avenue, is there a way for the senator to phone in just by calling? Can we give him that information and connect with him that way?
Yes, that's a possibility. You can, for the people that are on a computer, if you come down to audio, where your button says mute, there's a little triangle there. You can click that and it says audio settings. It says switch to phone audio, and it'll give you the phone number to dial in, and you'll have to enter the password, but you'll be able to, you can dial in that way.
So this is a learning process for Okay, so this is a learning process for all of us, and I believe we might try and just do a phone call to connect with the senator and advise him of the other direction. And I'm looking at David right now. He might have an idea.
Senator Ginn's on. Senator Ginn, are you on? Senator Ginn, because if you are on, we could come back to Senator Ligon. Give Senator Ginn an opportunity.
David, let's do this for our committee and those watching. Let's show the public comment for the senator bills 123, 356, and 384, and then we can circle back. Is that something we can do?
Let's go ahead and do that then. So I'll
Okay.
run through the public comment for the three bills. You'll see some questions in between, and we'll come back to those when Senator Ligon is able to get on, or we figure out the audio issue here. So very quickly, Senate Bill 123. You'll see the support on your screen here. We have Kathleen Bowen from ACCG, the Georgia Water Coalition, Laura Early from the Satilla Riverkeeper, Barry Townsend, who is a resident of St. Simons Island, Leslie Riggins, Jessup, Georgia, Patricia McLeod, Savannah, Georgia, Jamie Clem from Townsend, and Laura Ike from Newington. Continuing on, for Senate Bill 356, we received support from Kathleen Bowen from ACCG. And then finally, for Senate Bill 384, we received support from Georgia Water Coalition, Laura Early from Still River Keepers, Danielle Lentz from Hortense, Georgia. Apologize if I pronounced the city wrong there, Brantley County, and Betty Smith from Brantley County. And opposing was the Brantley County Board of Commissioners. We can see if Senator Ginn, do we have you yet?
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We do have Senator Ginn. Senator Ligon, do we have you? Not yet. All right.
Now? If you can hear me, I'm not sure if it's on my phone or computer. Can you hear me?
All right, here's what we'll do. Somewhere or another, we're going to try and maybe just do a landline phone call to Senator Ligon's office and work with our technical support team and see if we can hook them up with us. So Senator Ginn, by way of introducing you, Senator Ginn, we did not have your presentation last week, so you will essentially be doing your presentation of your Bill 319, and I still see public comment. All right, here's 319. Okay, so on our screen, committee members and the public, you should see, and the senator will see the public comment to this bill. But Senator, you're up at bat. Just give us a background on your bill and what your goal is. I'm gonna.
First of all,
you'll have David Hartman. Okay.
can you hear me, Madam Chair? Am I coming through on the?
Yes, we
you're
can hear
coming
you.
through. We can hear and see. So,
Okay, great. So no, I appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. This bill, and I don't know how much detail you want to know, but basically it's to address the safe dams issue in Georgia. Back when I chaired the Natural Resources in the Senate, I found out that we had 357 state-owned dams across Georgia, mostly North Georgia, but all of these dams, when you start looking at them, there are some that are Category 1, and this bill doesn't really address any Category 1 bill, but on the Category 2 dams, I recognize the expense of hardening a Category 2 dam to where it would meet the safe dam requirements. I had a constituent that when I first got elected had a dam here in Jackson County that
it was about $2.6 million to harden that one dam. So I asked EPD for some help on identifying how can we address a breach analysis on the Category 2 dams and prevent them from becoming Category 1 dams. Because if you can prevent an inhabitable structure from being built below that, you can make sure that we've got a situation where it will always stay a Category 2. Now, many of y'all know in my former life, I was a county manager, and I dealt with some of these Category 1 and Category 2 dams that your partner on most of these state-owned dams is the local government. So I got to work firsthand on some of these dams. The bill is based on the concept that I want to protect private property rights. When we look at, I don't want to, you know, I'm a big proponent for, you know, telling somebody, hey, you can do what you want to on your property. Well, if you have the first off, the concept is with everybody in the state enjoys better water quality, better fisheries, better recreation with more reservoirs across the state. So when I thought about how do I protect people downstream from the flooding that could occur with the dam breach, and how do I keep those dams in play, it's a tough balance, and I don't think there's a perfect way to do it. This is the best I've been able to come up with. But in the coastal area, and I'm looking at Senator Ligon, I hope he can smile for me, but he did. So he can at least hear me. But in the coastal area, if you want to build a house in a hurricane zone, you have to build to a little higher standard. The concept of this bill is I don't want to prevent somebody from being able to do what they want to on their own property. And if they want to build a structure below a dam, first off, they need to recognize that the dam's there. So if you're the owner of a dam, and you will have a breach study done by an engineer of record that meets all of EPD's safe dams folks requirements, then we can at least map the inundation zone below that area. And if there's no inhabitable structures below that, then your dam is what they call a Category 2 dam. And the way to keep it from becoming a Category 1 is either A, not build an inhabitable structure below it, or B, build an inhabitable structure. If somebody wants to build a house or whatever, they could do it and do it in a way that structure would not be putting anybody in danger if the dam were to breach. And I'll use an example. Let's just say that Chairman Smith, if you'll let me pick on you, because you are behind the mask. If you wanted to build a house down there close to the creek, down below one of these dams, and the breach analysis showed that your house would have 30 inches of water and it'd be moving at 5 feet per second, most any structure would be washed away if it had 30 inches of water and 5 feet per second. But in this case, something as simple as doing some earthwork and raising the house foundation up by 30 inches or above would build an island around your house. So that, you know, you're not having to go to any extraordinary measures. That'd be a simple fix to the problem of that dam going from a Category 2 to a Category 1. Now, the cost on hardening a Category 1 dam, like I said, early on in my career, I dealt with a dam in Jackson County that was about $2.6 million to harden one dam. Currently, the state has 186 of these that EPD worked with me to identify. We've had, I was able to work with Governor Deal and the appropriations chair to put $3.1 million into the budget to do breach analysis on those dams. Those studies are coming back in now on those dams, and the cost of doing a breach analysis is somewhere between $8,000 and probably on the high end about $20,000. But it's a great way to first off identify areas of the breach zone. And yes, you're probably going to find that there's some category 2s that are really category 1s. You'll find structures that are in those zones already. And that's the first step to saving somebody's life, is to identify the hazard. This bill incentivizes that. It helps weigh the protections of the folks downstream and their property rights with the protections upstream and what's going on with it. So, Madam Chair, I don't know how much you want me to talk, but that's pretty just overall picture of the bill. I do have a substitute that I've submitted to the chairman and to staff, so that we've got EPD to help me, and they weighed in on the bill itself. I apologize. I'm in an old courthouse where some work's going on, so you may hear some background noise. But for me, I don't know if Director Dunn is on the phone or Lauren Curry said they with us, but they might give you a little points on some of the changes that they've requested.
So David is managing that connection. David, do we have anybody?
So we do have Lauren Curry on the phone if they would like to comment. Also, Senator Ligon, your audio is working now, but if you wouldn't mind muting it for now.
Okay, we'll do it.
And
Thank you.
we'll be good. We'll come right back to. Thank you so much. And then Lauren, if you're on.
Did Senator again hear all the things I said about him?
I don't think so.
I'm just listening to the good stuff.
And then Lauren, if you're on.
Yes, David, this is Lauren. Can you hear me and see me?
Yep, we can. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. As Chairman Ginn mentioned, we worked with him on the Senate side on some of the language in the bill, some of the technical language. We wanted to ensure that some of the definitions he was using and some of the wording he was using was congruent with the current definitions and wording that we use in the Safe Dams Act. EPD has not taken a position on the bill, but we have, as the chairman mentioned, worked with him on the language to ensure that it works with our existing language in the Act.
If I could, Madam Chair, one of the things you know, when we talked last week, I did not have any group that had been in opposition, but what was kind of interesting was I got an email yesterday, and I did not know that there was such an organization, but there's a National Association of, let me see if I can get the name right, Association of State Dam Safety Officials. Said who knew? Said I spoke with Mark Ogden, I believe was his last name, this morning, who's the director for the Association of State Dam Safety Officials. Said and I have invited him and welcomed him to give me any feedback. One of the things that, you know, he told me their concern is that in building a house below a Category 2 dam, they didn't want to encourage that. They didn't, you know, that was one of the concerns that they had was from a policy standpoint. Of course, they don't want anybody to build anything below the a dam, and because you don't know all of the history on the dam. So for me, I have followed up with him with the substitute version, but also the welcome, you know, any organization to help me with the improving the bill. One of the things that you and I both know, there's no such thing as perfect legislation, but when we look, for me, this does a lot to help identify those breach areas. And first you have to recognize there's a problem. And in engineering school, the first thing they taught us was define the problem and then try to solve it. And for me, if we don't know what areas are in the breach zone, then we're never going to be able to work on that. And what I'm trying to do is balance the downstream property owner rights with the benefits of having more dams stay in place. And as you know, it's been one of those things that if you've been on this committee very long, you've probably gotten calls from homeowner association and other groups and individuals that have a high hazard dam and they don't know what to do with it. They're stuck. And that's where, for me, I recognized the problem several years ago, and I'm trying to work to solve it. I reached out to our Georgia Realtors, our Home Builders Association, our different organizations, different engineering groups. I've gotten a lot of feedback, and all of it has been positive up until yesterday, when this national association said they decided that they'd weigh in, and I'm proud that they did, because if there's a change that they can suggest to me to make it better, we want to try to make sure that's the perfect process of perfecting legislation. So, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. And for those who are being involved now in the discussion on safe dams, it's quite a history lesson to read about Toccoa Falls and the collapse of that dam so early in the 20th century. But thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will ask that when, and I don't know how y'all will go about in your schedule. Will you do a live committee meeting next week maybe? And is that the plan on moving legislation?
So I'll conclude by explaining that since we really yet as a body, the General Assembly, are not certain how our schedule is going to work, but our intentions are to follow the process we've always followed, which is committee work first and then move on to full committee. But we all need to keep in mind we're on a very limited, tight frame line for all of this. So thank y'all for participating in these preliminary Zoom meetings, because we're all going to have at least done our homework on these issues so we can be prepared when we can actually have our committee meetings, subcommittee and full. But thank you, Senator. And I know we've got Senator Ligon now. So I'm going to switch over to you, Senator. And
Yes,
David,
ma'am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, and David Hartman and you will work back and forth as he presents the information for us to view. So it's your turn.
Senator Lincoln, say all those good things about me one more time.
Oh, that you didn't hear when I was muted? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so Madam Chair, how do you want me to proceed now? Do you want me just to answer the question, or?
I think in the beginning, just to refresh everyone's memories, you have Senate Bill 123, Senate Bill 356, and Senate Bill 384. And I'm going to let David interject in here now, because we put some slides up while we were trying to work with you on the audio part of this presentation. But eventually, really just a quick summary. He'll mention the support or the comments, and then we'll do each bill individually and go from there. So I'm gonna mute my button and turn it over to conversation between you, Senator Ligon, and David Hartman.
Okay.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, David.
So we did go through public comment when we're still trying to figure out the audio, and I've got it on the screen right now if folks want to just refresh themselves. But what I kind of figured we could do is I would read, well, first, if you have any preliminary comments on Senate Bill 123, and if we go through each bill, and then I will read a question and you can give your response from there.
No, I don't think I don't have any additional comments, to add to what I stated the last time. I think that what the bill does is fairly self-explanatory, and I'll be glad to answer the questions.
Yes, sir. And then, of course, we do have EPD on the call if there are any questions you would like to defer to them. But for Senate Bill 123, the first question that we have is, can you tell us how much coal ash has been dumped in Georgia landfills and how much money counties that host landfills are missing out on? Okay.
All right. Based on what we can determine just from the data that EPD collects, since in 2019, there were about 1.7 million tons of coal ash dumped. That means that counties lost over $2.5 million. And since the reporting started, we would have missed out about maybe $6.8 million. Those are just very rough numbers based on what I can tell. So that is a significant amount of revenue for some of our counties that we're losing. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Next one is how much out of state coal ash is coming to Georgia? So coal ash coming from other states.
Well, based on what we can tell from the reports that we have in the last 3 years, maybe somewhere around 4.6 million tons of coal ash have been brought into Georgia from out of state. It had been coming from Duke Energy, South Carolina, North Carolina. There's other coal ash that shipped through Florida. And it appears that that number may be increasing. 2019 numbers were higher than about 2017 and 2018.
Alrighty, and I think the third question is for EPD. If Lauren, you're still on there.
Yes, I'm here, and I have Chuck Mueller, Chief of the Land Branch, prepared to answer that question for us.
Fantastic. And Chuck, the question is, what problems have arisen from coal ash at existing landfills?
So a couple of years ago, we adopted some revisions to our regulations to ensure that we had adequate safeguards in place to prevent any issues from coal ash in existing landfills. Before an existing landfill can receive coal ash, they have to submit and get approval from us a coal ash management plan, which would address how much the coal ash they receive, that it's got to be compatible with that particular landfill. It's got to make a demonstration that it will be structurally stable and it'll be managed well, and also address any dust controls. In addition, we require enhanced monitoring for these particular landfills to ensure that the groundwater it meets the same strict requirements that coal ash would be required at a coal ash facility. So we have those plans in place. We review them on an annual basis, and to date they seem to be working well. We don't have any identified issues.
All right, thank you very much. And I believe, Senator Ligon, unless you have any other comments on Senate Bill 123, you can probably move on to the next bill.
I don't have any more comments on Senate Bill 123 right now.
Fantastic. So on to Senate Bill 356. Again, we went through public comments earlier. And you can see on your screen right now, Kathleen Bone from ACCG sent in support for 356. And actually, we didn't have any questions either. So unless you have any additional comments on 356, we can move on to the next bill.
I don't have any comments.
Fantastic. Then Senate Bill 384, again, reminder on the public comments here. We went through them earlier. And then we do have a handful of questions for 384. And again, I'll read through it. We have EPD on the call if there's any questions you think that they should weigh in on. But number one, and again, as a reminder to everyone, these are questions that were sent in by our Natural Resource Committee members. First question is, are you aware, according to recent information provided by Georgia EPD, documented release of groundwater contaminants from landfills in Georgia are all associated with unlined landfill units and or outdated operational procedures located outside the limits of the landfill and no longer acceptable by Georgia EPD?
Right. Well, while I'm not familiar with that study, I do know that there's a big difference between landfills that are lined and landfills that are not lined. But it is a fact that even lined landfills can leak, or there's the potential for leak, and that's why we have all of these requirements, and we have monitoring wells around them. But one concern that I have about that as it relates to southeast Georgia in our coastal plain is that information may not necessarily be relevant to circumstances surrounding our Blackwater River and, for example, the Satilla River. In that river, for example, although there may be a few high bluffs within the corridor, there is a good deal of land in that corridor that is classified as wetland. It is very sandy and porous, and it has a high water table, meaning that the water could even be within 1 foot of the the surface of the ground. In this area, we're not far from the Okefenokee Swamp. You have a lot of flat pine lands similar to this, and water can just stand on that for a significant amount of time. And if you're going to put a landfill in these areas, you can't dig it out and put it into the ground. And I believe most of our landfills in Georgia are underground. You're going to have to build a mountain of trash and surround it with moats. When you're as close to the coast as we are here, we have our hurricanes, our tropical storms. There's a tremendous amount of flooding, and you would have the action of wind and water on that mountain. It can, if you have the moats around it, there is a great potential for leakage and blowing this stuff all over the place, allowing not only the leachate to escape into the groundwater, and again, those wetlands are interconnected, and they make their way to the river, allowing contamination of the river. But you're also going to have those materials blown everywhere. And so that's why I'm concerned that if we just say, let's just look at this study, that we're not really comparing apples to apples. We're talking apples and oranges as that relates to our particular area and the particular circumstances that we're concerned about.
All right, thank you very much. The next question is, what is the reason for backdating the new requirement in line 273 of SB 384? I believe it says in which a permit was issued and was operating during or prior to 2019.
Sure. There was an existing small county landfill in Camden County, which is it's actually situated on a much higher elevation, a higher bluff. You don't have the wetland concerns, the high water table, and it was not to create a situation where that landfill could run afoul of the law.
All right, thank you very much. We had another question, and a couple of folks asked this one. Just how was the 3 mile distance determined? And actually,
Okay.
if you don't mind, I think it actually ties into, well, let's go ahead and answer that one. Sorry.
How the 3 mile distance was determined?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 3 miles is we saw it. It was a reasonable approximation of the average Blackwater River floodplains that are subject to seasonally, and then in the lower parts of our rivers, tidally influenced variations in water tables and surface flooding, and allowing the free movement of waters in those areas with no exposure to contaminants is the most cost-effective way to preserve high water quality. And obviously, the greater the distance from the river, the greater the attenuation of pollutants. And a 2 or 3 mile buffer is not unusual. In fact, based on certain studies, a 3 mile separation is preferred to allow better attenuation of the waste and to protect our surface waters. In some instances where you have our sandy soils like we have here, the shallow groundwater levels, which at times of year is right at the surface or even above, such as those near, in my experience, in my case, the Satilla River, which lie completely within the coastal plain, it's suggested to look at 5 miles. So it's just a reasonable estimation of what would be needed to protect our river corridors and give sufficient distance.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. So next question is, since Georgia law and it cites code section 12-2-8 already prohibits landfill use within a protected river corridor, why not amend, or have you considered amending SB 384 to remove the language about prohibiting the siting of a new landfill and instead provide for additional surface water monitoring measures for all landfills located within 3 miles of Blackwater River?
Sure. Well, first of all, monitoring of landfills for leaching of contaminants is good policy, and certainly disclosure of those results is probably even better on a timely basis, is better public policy. But the best policy for our Blackwater rivers is to isolate them from the contaminants. You have to remember they have low levels of dissolved oxygen in them. In my opinion, that makes them more susceptible to our fish kills. And isolating them from the contaminants is the best. And with reference to OCGA 12.2.8, that bill defines a river corridor as 100 feet within mean high water. And then you have a buffer of 100 feet from the edge of the riverbank. And that does not really account for and consider the issues surrounding landfills and the particular hydrology that we have down here. And I just think that just, in my opinion, monitoring these websites, not websites, but these landfills is not sufficient because of our issues with our hurricanes. We've had more hurricanes in the last few years, our tropical storms. And I can just tell you from what I've seen in my area that the action of these storms, and we've had some close calls, we haven't had direct hits. It is a tremendous force. And in this instance, having a landfill that is above ground, that extends up into the air, is a substantial risk. Our area is just not suited for this. These rivers are not suited for this. And in particular, the Satilla River is a very valuable, relatively clean resource that should not be exposed to that risk. So.
All right. So for the next question, well, it says, are you aware that the landfill operation will only comprise a small footprint within the Coastal Terrace Green Energy Park? The proposed landfill will only be 107 acres within a 2,000 acre property, and it will be protected by a significant green space buffer. If you have any additional comments on that question.
Sure. Yes, I am aware that there is, 107 acre site that's proposed there. That's, a significant site. And I know that they're proposed and protected by a green space buffer. It may be several hundreds of feet. But again, you have to remember that the proposal here is not for an in-ground landfill. You just can't do that. You'd be pumping water out of that all the time because the water table is so high. There's going to be a mountain of trash that's going to be filled up and covered. It'll be layered as the process goes. And I would suggest to you that when you're putting the landfill above the ground, that a buffer of a few hundred feet or maybe even a mile is not sufficient, because you have the visual, the aesthetics of it. Again, you have the issue with flooding in our area. That is a very real concern with our storms. And so besides the river, this is an area where people live. Groundwater, drinking water is obtained from the ground. And so the potential for exposure and of wells to leachate is significant. And so I would say that again, the hydrology, the geology, the circumstances justify the protections offered by this bill.
Thank you very much. Next question, and we're almost done here. It asks, can you speak at all to an ongoing lawsuit regarding a local landfill in the county that contains Blackwater River referenced?
Sure. I have a general working knowledge of that. I don't know much about it. I can tell you that the developer of this potential site in Brantley County is suing the county, alleging that they had given them some preliminary approval. My understanding is that the property is not necessarily in compliance with their zoning plan, that the developer never submitted a written detail uses of the property, and had led the county to believe that other types of businesses would be used on this property, such as something like a pellet plant or something using switch grass to create bioenergy type things. And in fact, if you look at the name that's being used that was referenced in your previous question, the Coastal Terrace Green Energy Park, nothing suggests the use of a landfill. But I don't have personal knowledge of any of the allegations, responses to that suit. But there's one thing that I do know. Once the people of Brantley County and other surrounding areas on the Satilla River found out about this, the opposition was unanimous. It was strong. Just in the recent primary election, the question was on the ballot whether or not a landfill in this area was appropriate. Over 90% of the voters said no. My understanding is that in the EPD process, there were 9,600 letters opposing this. There may be only 3 in favor of it. I think that the people that live in this area and know this area understand. We know our hydrology, we know our weather, we know our water tables. We know that this area is not conducive for a landfill of this type. The people have spoken quite clearly, and I believe that as legislators we should support them in seeking to protect these certain Blackwater rivers, because they're well aware of the economic importance in terms of recreation and beauty, and people live here, people fish, hunt, canoe, camp, kayak on these waters. And in particular, the Satilla River doesn't have any large industries on it. And so it's something that's a gem, it's worthy of our protection. So.
All right, thank you very much. And the last one should be relatively quick. Can you provide a list, or are there any other Blackwater rivers in the state?
Yes, you have 3 that are not wholly in Georgia. You have the St. Mary's, the Suwannee, the Ochlockonee, and then you have 3 that are wholly, the Geechee, Canoochee, and the Satilla. And just to say that again, the Satilla, of all of them, it is a particularly unique and clean river without industry. And as a state, we've invested a lot of money in this river system. We've just purchased a large tract of land down at the mouth of it for a wildlife area. We're investing money in closing Noise Cut as part of a restoration to damage caused by the Corps of Engineers years ago. And so I think it's an area that we, as a legislature, we've recognized is an important, with a lot of natural beauty, and is worthy again of protection. So
Thank you very much, Senator. I believe that is the end of the questions from committee members. Let me just ensure. Yep, that would be the end of those questions. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Yes, and I want to check and see if Senator Kennedy has been able to join us yet.
Madam Chair, may I ask you a question while we're waiting on him?
Certainly.
I know I had.
Did you drink any water or have any breaks during all of your we kept you on the line for a long time, so thank you.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I know I had a call from the governor's office, and they were looking at combining Senate 123 with a bill that I believe you all had previously passed. May have been House Bill 926, and I don't know if you want to reserve that for later.
So we are set. All of us are trying to figure out what the next session, how our procedures are going to work. But it's my understanding you might be bringing a substitute on 123. Is that
yes, ma'am.
Well, go ahead and address that now if you know.
Well, I believe that Lauren Curry is on the line, and I would ask her to address that. I don't have any objections to doing that, and I believe the substitute would also include the McIntosh County landfill bill, and I'd like to have some discussions with the chair lady at some point in time about
Thank you.
creating what we just went over.
Okay, so I'm thinking, what's today? It's Thursday, and we'll be back in session on Monday, but I don't think any of us know yet how that day is going to proceed. But there would, and to any senator who needs to try and find me and talk, I'm going to be available. So
Okay, thank you,
try
ma'am.
to be available, during the session. So
Okay,
and to all of our senators and to our House members and the public, there's an awful lot of work that's going into all of this, and doing this preview like we're doing now, we hope that we can all start with the baseline knowledge of what we're dealing with, because we're in such a short time frame. No matter the process we work, we have 10 days, but we're up against June 30th deadline as well. So we're dealing with important issues that are going to be go through the voting process in a very, very brief period of time. So again, thank everybody for listening and all of us trying to get up to speed on our issues. I think it's really important. And thank you, Senator.
thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
Okay, we've got one more person to hear from, Senator Kennedy.
Madam Chair, if I can say, this is David again. He did mention that he may be delayed because I believe he's in court today. But I do not know if he's on the line right now.
So, so here I am with, I think Senator Liggins sent me some of his technological problems, because I'm not seeing anybody anymore, but I think y'all are hearing me. So, but I've lost the visual. So let me just summarize, because a lot of us are having the same thoughts, and we're trying to predict our actions next week without knowing how it's going to be handled. But let me just say thank you to our authors for addressing their bills, and to all members of the committee and the public for participating. We are still learning how session will be conducted. So I'm getting help here. It takes two people to get me visually. There we go. Okay. So let me start over. I have no idea what I just did. Thank you to the authors for addressing their bills, and all members of the committee and the public for participating. We're still learning how the session will be conducted, but please, as always, keep an eye out for updates regarding the format of our committee, and to reach out to Nicole or to David Hartman in that respect. Our normal process when we exchange bills with the other chamber, with the Senate, is we address first the Senate bills, because we still have to move back and forth across our chambers, and towards the end of the session, once there should be some time to focus on House resolutions at that point in time. But right now our emphasis is totally on the process with our Senate bills. So in that vein, hopefully we will have our subcommittee meetings early next week. Not certain, but that's what the anticipated action is. And then maybe that could be followed by Thursday, which is our normal meeting day at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we don't know. That we're just trying to lay out that plan for everyone to try and keep up with what's going on. So absolutely, there is a subcommittee process and a full committee process. And the homework we're doing in advance of this should prepare us, and we will be better prepared for our debates. So again, thank everyone for participating. This pre-session work has paved the way for a more efficient and safe subcommittee and full committee process. Take care, stay healthy, and we'll see everybody on Monday. And with that, I'm going to close myself out, or I won't, our technology department will. But thank y'all very much. And we will keep our communications open. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.